Alright guys, so I know it's been kind of a lot of videos right now and we still have 8 examples to go. As tempting as it might be to kind of skip through some of these, every example has its own unique situation, so I really don't recommend that you skip any of them. Just kind of hang in there a little bit longer and bear with me. So I'll go as fast as I can. Example A here, sine of 150 degrees. So we've got our chart, I just kind of put that there so we had it to reference. So our steps to success say first we're going to sketch the angle. So I'm going to draw a little axis here, sketch the angle of 150 degrees. 150 degrees is going to be in quadrant 2. I know it's in quadrant 2 because it's less than 180 degrees and more than 90. All I'm really concerned about is not if it's exactly sketched properly, but that it's in the correct quadrant. So I've done that. Step number 2 says that we are going to find the reference angle. So when you have an angle that's in quadrant 2, that tells us we're going to have to take 180 minus our angle. So 150 here, which is going to give us a reference angle of 30 degrees. We want to find those reference angles because that's what we're going to use here in my chart to help me figure out what my values are. So now step number 3 is we need to find the ordered pair. So we're going to find the ordered pair from the chart. So my ordered pair, we're dealing with 30 degrees. So my ordered pair here is going to be negative radical 3 over 2, positive 1/2. Now, where did those come from? Well, the 30 degrees came from this row right here. The radical 3 over 2, you can see, is my x-coordinate, that's my cosine, and the 1/2 is my y-coordinate, that's my sine. We know that the ordered pair is going to be negative, positive, because it's in quadrant 2. Negative for left, positive for up. So we've done that. My ordered pair is negative radical 3 over 2, 1/2. And then step number 4 says that we're going to flip or divide. So what does that mean? Well, we want to flip if we have a cosecant, a secant, or a cotangent, which we don't. And we're going to divide if we have a tangent or cotangent, or really we would just look at our chart here. So we just have to find our answer. We just have to steal our answer. Since we're dealing with sine in the problem, sine always goes with y, so my answer is going to be 1/2. You're done. Okay, example B, secant of 135 degrees. So, step number 1, 135 degrees, sketch the angle. So, draw my axes. 135 degrees is going to be between 90 and 180, so it's going to be right in quadrant 2 again here. Step number 2 is find the reference angle. So, being in quadrant 2, we'll take 180 minus our angle of 135 to get a reference angle of 45 degrees. Step number 3. Now we're going to look at the 45 degrees in my chart and we're going to find that ordered pair. So my ordered pair, being in quadrant 2, is going to be negative radical 2 over 2, positive radical 2 over 2. Now what do we want? Well, this is where it gets kind of like that step number 4, where you have to flip it or divide. So since it's a secant, you have to know that secant and cosine, they go together. They're partners. So I know here that my cosine of 135 is negative radical 2 over 2. That's my cosine. But I don't want cosine. I want secant. Remember that secant and cosine are reciprocals of each other. So if cosine is negative radical 2 over 2, then that means that secant is going to be 2 over negative radical 2. Now we can't leave that radical in the denominator, so you would have to rationalize. So you'll have 2 radical 2 over negative 2. Those are going to cancel out, but that negative is still going to be a part of your answer. So your answer is going to be negative radical 2. Now your sign, being positive or negative for cosine and secant, are going to be the same. So you can see here that my cosine was negative and my secant is also negative. But we did have to flip it. We did have to find that reciprocal because of its fact that it's a secant. Okay, example C now, sine of 240 degrees. So step number 1, we're going to go ahead and sketch this. Sine of 240. 240 degrees is greater than 180, but less than 270. So my angle is going to be here in quadrant 3. That's going to help me figure out my ordered pairs in terms of signs. And I mean sign, not this sign, but sign as in positive, negative. So step number 2 is going to be to find that reference angle. And when you're in quadrant 3, that means you take your angle, which in this case is 240, minus 180, which is telling me my reference angle is 60 degrees. So that means from my chart, I want to deal with that ordered pair of 60 degrees, so ordered pair from 60 degrees. So my ordered pair is going to be negative 1/2 negative radical 3 over 2. So I got the 1/2 and the radical 3 over 2 straight from my chart over here, but I got that sign because in this quadrant it's negative, negative, because that's the ordered pairs, left and down. So now I want sine. You have to remember that sine goes with y. So my step number 4 here is just going to be to grab that answer of negative radical 3 over 2. I don't have to do any flipping because I don't have a cosecant or anything, and I don't have to find my tangent. Okay, so now we're going to move into a couple of examples that have radians. So we know that we're in radians because my angles here are 7 pi over 4, so we're dealing with pi. That automatically transfers into radians. Same steps to success. My first step is going to be going ahead and sketching that to find out what quadrant it's in. So remember, if this is 0, and over here is pi. Since the denominator is 4, that's what I want to be counting by. So this is going to be 4 pi over 4, which means one full time around the circle would be 8 pi over 4 instead of just writing 2 pi. So now where is 7 pi over 4 when we are sketching? Well, it's all the way in quadrant 4 because this would be 6 pi over 4, which is right in the middle of the 4 and the 8. And this should totally be a 4. I wish you guys were here so you could talk to me. And now between the 6 and the 8, we know that 7 is in there. So then step number 3 would be to find that reference angle. Now I did tell you that your reference angle is always just going to be pi over the denominator, but if you're not quite comfortable with that, you can go ahead and look in your quadrant 2, which says you're going to have to do 2 pi, or the 8 pi over 4, minus your angle, which is 7 pi over 4. And you will see that we are going to get that pi over 4 like we mentioned previously. Now that means that we want to look here at the pi over 4 row. And that is going to be our ordered pair now. And since we're in that fourth quadrant, that fourth quadrant is going to be positive, negative in terms of signs. Sorry. So when I write my ordered pairs, I can put positive radical 2 over 2, negative radical 2 over 2. And I got that radical 2 over 2 again from my chart right here. Now what I want to do is cosine. You got to remember that cosine goes with x. So my x value in this ordered pair is radical 2 over 2. And the sign is positive, so that's my answer. Alright, so we have two things going on in this example. One, we have a negative angle measure, and two, we have tangents. We haven't seen any tangents yet, and we also haven't seen any negative angle measures. Just remember, a negative angle, all it means is that you are going in the clockwise direction when you're drawing your angle instead of in the counterclockwise direction. So if I go ahead and sketch this, this is still going to be my 0, but now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be moving in the clockwise direction. So if this is 0, all the way halfway around the circle is going to be negative pi. Well, remember, we're not talking about negative pi. We're talking about negative 4 pi over 4 because we want to have that same denominator as in my problem. So if that's negative 4 pi over 4, then that means negative 3 pi over 4 is going to have to be in that quadrant 3 now. So remember what a reference angle is. It's how far do I have to go until I get to the x-axis. And that's going to be pi over 4, because negative 3 plus 1 more would be negative 4. Now, I know you're thinking, well, it has to be plus a negative. Reference angles are always positive. We kind of think about those as distance, how far until I get to that x-axis. So my reference angle here, for step number 3, is going to be pi over 4. And then also you can remember that it's always just pi over whatever your original denominator is. So 4 in this case. So when I look at the pi over 4, that means I'm going to be dealing with this row in my chart again. And I want to write my ordered pair. So my ordered pair in quadrant 3 here would be negative, negative, because we're going left and down. So my ordered pair is negative radical 2 over 2, negative radical 2 over 2. Now, this is cosine and sine. We want tangent. So what we need to know is that tangent is equal to sine divided by cosine. Now, I know we can see in our chart here that the tangent is going to be 1. But where does that come from? Or let's say you don't have this part of the chart memorized and you've only memorized the 3, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3. That's okay. You can still get tangent by just doing cosine divided by sine. and sine divided by cosine. If you did negative radical 2 over 2 divided by negative radical 2 over 2, same thing on top and bottom is going to give you a 1 here. And it's going to be positive because you have a negative divided by a negative. And so your final answer, the tangent of negative 3 pi over 4, is 1. Okay, so the cosecant of 11 pi over 6. First thing we're going to do is sketch that angle. So here is 0. This would be pi, or in our case, 6 pi over 6, which means over here would be 2 pi, or in our case, 12 pi over 6. So 11 pi over 6 is going to be past 6 pi over 6, past 9 pi over 6, into this fourth quadrant here to be 11 pi over 6. And then we can go ahead and get our reference angle, which is just going to be pi over the denominator. If you're more comfortable with doing the algebra, you can take the 2 pi, which is 12 pi over 6 in this case, minus our angle, 11 pi over 6, and you're still going to end up with the pi over 6. Now, for number 4, what I meant to say was for step number 3, now we're going to get the ordered pair from the chart. So we have pi over 6. Pi over 6 is 30 degrees, so we're going to go ahead and use our ordered pair right there, which is going to be a radical 3 over 2, and then a negative 1/2. So the x is positive, the y is negative. That's because we're moving to the right and down. So that's a positive direction to the right, and down would be negative. So now this is a cosecant problem. So what you have to remember is that cosecant and sine are the ones that are matching. So if my sine is negative 1/2, then that means my cosecant, you have to flip it, is going to be negative 2. Now these last two examples, sine of 270 degrees, this is actually a quadrantal angle, so we just want to make sure that you don't forget about these. We did these a couple of days ago. So the first thing you're going to do these the same way. You're going to sketch your angle, except you're going to notice that 270 degrees is on the y-axis there. So whenever it's a point that's on the y-axis, you're going to kind of bypass the reference angle because there are no reference angles for quadrantal angles, and you're really going to bypass the ordered pair also, and you're just going to go ahead and use the ordered pair. When I say bypass the ordered pair, I mean bypass the chart. You do not need a chart for quadrantal angles. You just need the ordered pair. The ordered pair here would be 0, negative 1, and that's from section 9.2. So now we want sine of 270 degrees, and remember that sine goes with y, so that's going to be my y coordinate there of negative 1. Alright guys, last example, way to make it this far. So we're going to go ahead and do cotangent of 5 pi over 2. So 5 pi over 2, that's radians. And if this is 2 pi over 2, because we're going to go with that counting again, this here would be 4 pi over 2, which would mean one more right here would be 5 pi over 2. So every halfway around the circle is counting by 2. So if this is 2 and then you have 4, then you end up with a 6 pi over 2 essentially. So that 5 pi over 2 is right in the middle. So if we redraw that, we know that 5 pi over 2 is going to be right here. Since it is a point on the y-axis, on one of the axes, that means there's no reference angles. That means we're not using the chart. That means you can go ahead and just do the ordered pair. So 0, 1. Quadrantal angles always have the 0, 1, 1, 0, one of those four ordered pairs. So now what we have to do is we have a cotangent. Well, we don't have cotangent in our ordered pair. We only have sine and cosine. So what you need to remember is that tangent is equal to sine divided by cosine, and sine is y, and cosine is x. So we can go ahead and find that tangent is equal to 1 divided by 0. Well, if tangent is 1 divided by 0, then that means cotangent is the reciprocal, or 0 divided by 1. We never leave our answer like that because that's weird. So your answer, 0 divided by 1, is 0. That's it, guys. Great job. Go ahead and do the give it a try on Buzz. Thanks.